أعزائي المشاهدين، أهلا وسهلا بكم في بيت الخيال في ملتقى تورونتو الدولي لفن اليوميات. ضمن هذه الفعاليات لهذا الملتقى نستضيف اليوم الكاتبة الكبيرة الكندية مارغريت أتود لنتحدث عن علاقتها بفن اليوميات والمذكرات وما حف بهما من أجناس أدبية حول الكتابة عن الذات بشكل عام. سيكون معي الأستاذ الدكتور وليد الخشاب، أهلا وسهلا بك. سيكون هذا الحوار ثنائي اللغة، حيث سأطرح على ضيفتنا السؤال بالعربية، وسيطرح عليها السؤال دكتور وليد الخشاب بالإنجليزية، لنستمع إلى مارغريت أتود. فأهلا وسهلا بك ضيفة بيننا في ملتقى تورونتو الدولي فن اليوميات في دورته الأولى. أهلا وسهلا مارغريت.
Thank you all for joining in. This is a conversation with Margaret Atwood, the famed Canadian author. This is organized by Kamel Riahi and the House of Fiction in collaboration with Walid El Khachab, myself from York University. This is within the first Toronto International Forum for the Art of Diaries. Kamel Riahi will ask the questions in Arabic. I will ask them in English. Then Ms. Atwood will kindly answer in English. So welcome everybody. Welcome Margaret Atwood. Thank you for being with us. And here we go.
السؤال الأول، في كتابك التفاوض مع الموتى كتبت ذات مرة عن تفويتك لتعلم رقصة التانجو لأنها لم تكن رائجة وقتها، رغم أنك تعلمت الفالس والروكاندرول. إذا مددنا هذه الاستعارة إلى الأجناس الأدبية، حيث أنك كتبت الشعر والرواية والقصة القصيرة والمذكرات والنقد، هل يمكن أن نقول إن اليوميات في هذه الحالة هي التانجو الذي فلت منك؟
In your book,
It's a long question.
in your book,
Okay.
Cooking with the Dead, you wrote that you've skipped learning tango because that dance was not popular at the time. If we extended the stroke to literary genres and considered that you have written poetry, fiction, and short stories, could we say that diaries are the tango you have skipped?
Well, I didn't skip it. I just did it badly. It's a little different. Yes, I have a lot of journals, but I don't think they're really very good as journals. They were not written for publication. So they're not very profound.
مهم.
They're mostly what I was doing that day.
So then why have you accepted to publish them?
I'm not publishing them.
مهم.
Yes, I published a memoir, but that's not a journal.
أوكي.
So that's coming out on November the 4th. The journals look like they look like this. So they're big art books like
Oh,
that.
very nice.
And then they're in handwriting like that.
Ah,
And then sometimes I paste pictures into them like that, where I've been. This seems to be France, but you can see they're not very. This goes from 1984 to 1991. So you can see I often forgot to write in them and then summarized later what had happened that year. And that's basically how it goes. Sometimes I keep records of what I've written that day.
okay.
And at the back, I keep a record of how many pages I've written, but that's really just for me. It's no interest to anybody else.
Okay.
Another page. and so forth. And sometimes I have things that I just I forget to paste in. So these are all. Oh, this is from 1991. It looks like a carbon copy. Do you remember carbon paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to explain to younger readers what that was. Okay, so the carbon copy of a letter from France to my parents in 1991. So stuff like that, but not profound meditations on the nature of fiction or anything like that.
مهم. آم، غالبا ما يقول أن كتاب اليوميات أن أحد دوافعهم الأساسية لتسجيل يومياتهم هو حفظ الذاكرة، الذاكرة الخاؤون كما يسميها جورج ماي الكاتب الفرنسي. هل يلامس هذا الموضوع شيئا عندك؟
Darius mentioned as a major motivation to write the desire to freeze time or to preserve memory. Does that drive resonate with you?
Well, I think that's been true ever since there's been storytelling, and especially since there has been physical writing, which goes back a very, very long time, as you know. So I'm thinking back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which he has all of these adventures, and then he comes back. He has the gift of immortality, but he drops it down a well, so that's why we're not immortal, in case you wondered. Um, and then he comes back, and it says at the end he was very tired, and then he wrote it all down on a stone. So that's writing. You get very tired and you write it all down on a stone. But once it is written on the stone, it's hard to change it. Whereas if you're in the tradition of oral storytelling, and especially if you were a village storyteller, you change the story to relate to the audience. Because if you don't, they will throw things at you. So, yes, at oral, you're interacting with your audience. They're right there.
Yeah.
With writing, we don't know who they are. They
Mm.
might be far in the future, such as us in relation to the Epic of Gilgamesh. We are reading a voice that is 4,000 years old. We are hearing it as if someone is talking to us. So, yes, it's a way of freezing time, but it's also a way of time travel
Yeah.
because that voice can travel through time to the future, and the writer can travel through time to the past
Mhm.
or give the illusion of doing so. Yeah, so it's always about time. Um, our whole lives are about time, but the novel in particular.
Mhm.
Poetry sometimes makes an attempt to escape from time, but you can't do that in the novel, even if you are Samuel Beckett.
Yes.
Yes,
Uh,
even in Waiting for Godot, um, they're still there in Act Two, but something has changed. They don't notice it. What is it? There's a tree in Act One that has no leaves on it, and in Act Two, it's got leaves, but the two characters in the play don't see them. We see them. We're the audience. Time has changed. Time has moved on. Something has changed.
yeah. في كتابك هذا نشرت اللغة التالية، أو الكلمات التالية. كتبت يوميات سفرك إلى أستراليا، ونشرت في هذا الكتاب مع مواد أخرى. كيف تصفين هذه التجربة، تجربة الكتابة عن السفر وهل صدرت لك أعمال أخرى في كتابة رحلاتك إلى العالم؟
In your book, Second Words, you've published diaries of your Australia trip.
A bit, yeah.
Have you written journals? Have you written travel literature other than the Australian experience?
Have I written travel literature? Um, Not much, really. Uh, we both kept travel journals, which are even smaller than these, just for travels. So I have them, but no, I didn't really use them. Graham did a bit, so he wrote some travel pieces for magazines, but really, it's not my main interest,
Mhm.
and it's not the reader's main interest either, really, unless something extraordinary has happened. So I do have all the notes from our trip to Afghanistan,
Yeah.
which we made more or less by mistake. We were going around the world. We were going to Australia, and you could get a ticket that allowed you to stop along the way if you didn't go sideways or backwards. So we got a ticket and we stopped in Iran. This was 9 months before the Shah vanished. And we visited the Canadian ambassador who had just arrived there. His name was Ken Taylor. And we said, "So what's it like?" He said, "No, it's fine, but the only reason I'm the ambassador is that I know something about trees and they're interested in forest products. But other than that, there's nothing much going on." and then, and then we were in Afghanistan. We thought if we stopped along the way, that our child, who was 13 months, would adjust to sleeping with the time changes. This did not happen. But we stopped in Iran and in Afghanistan because they were in. Then we went to India, then we went to Singapore, then we went to Australia, because we had these stops along the way, rest stops, but we didn't rest much. So I'd always wanted to see Afghanistan because I was a Victorianist, and the British, of course, famously tried to establish an imperial presence in Afghanistan and failed miserably, as Alexander the Great mentioned they might. And so did the Russians. And that was very, very interesting. But and we were among the last people to see Afghanistan as it was before this war broke out, and that's very precious. And we have some pictures from it. But I'm not sure why other people would necessarily be interested in that.
Mhm.
It was quite fascinating from a political point of view because there were three big embassies. There was a big Chinese embassy, there was a big USSR embassy, and there was a big American embassy, because all of them wanted that pinch point, which is quite important. If you're Chinese, you want to be able to expand westward. If you're Russian, you want a southern port or access. They would probably then go through into Pakistan. And if you're the United States, well, you just, want stuff, uh, such as Canada. Anyway, there we were. And Daoud at that time was playing these three off against each other, and they were all giving him things like. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But I think he had allowed women to be in the army, and they were at the security checkpoints in the airport, and I don't think that was playing very well with some other people there. So it was quite a conservative society, as you know. Anyway, pretty interesting. My father said before we left, don't go there, there's going to be a war. And we said, what's he talking about? What war? How does he know that? There isn't going to be a war. He read a lot of history.
في الحديث عن المذكرات عادة نتحدث عن أن الذين يكتبون مذكراتهم، وأنت من الذين كتبوا مذكراتهم، يستعينون بيوميات كتبوها وسجلوها ليس بغاية النشر، إنما للاستعانة بها في كتابة مذكراتهم. فهل استعنت بما رأيناه الآن من تسجيلات يومية في كتابة مذكراتك الصادرة هذا العام؟
Writers often write diaries to use them later to write memoirs and autobiographies. Have you done so yourself?
Uh, I did write a memoir, but I didn't consult these journals much except when I was confused about the dates. So I relied on memory, which I then checked. As I say, these are not um, they're not extensive notes on anything I was writing. They're more or less what we were doing and where we were traveling and things like that.
مهم.
Sometimes I'll put in things like saw a whale. It's not very instructive. Yeah.
مارغريت أتود، أنت من الكتاب القلائل ربما الآن الذين يصرون على الكتابة بخط اليد إلى الآن. فألا تعتبرين أن مسار كتابة بخط اليد وتحولاتها عبر سنوات العمر قد يشكل النظر فيه وتحولات هذا الخط إلى شكل من أشكال اليوميات اللاواعية للكاتب؟
You've often emphasized your attachment to handwriting and to notebooks. So, don't you agree that over time the shifts in handwriting constitute a form of diaries in their own right, a writer's unconscious diaries, so to speak?
Well, if you believe in graphology, yes. Uh, and graphology does have a little bit more science to it than some of these other things. So Graham was interested in it and would look at people's handwritings. Yes, it does constitute a kind of record of time passing and changing and you passing and changing, but no one would quite know how to interpret that. You could say, yes, it's changed, but what does that mean? Mine did not become tidier. It did not become easier to read. So my mother's, when she was going blind, became very, very small. I think she could only see up close and was making these tiny little handwritings. But what does that tell us? It tells us she was having vision problems. So what else can you say? She did have beautiful handwriting. She grew up in the school of beautiful handwriting that you were taught, and I think things were slipping a bit by the time I learned it because mine is not as neat and tidy. My father, you can tell by looking at his handwriting, was quite a decisive person. So he has quite big letters. They're very clear. They're very engraved into the paper. The pressure is quite strong. And his handwriting really didn't change that much. You can recognize it quite easily. You'll be interested to know that your signature is different from the rest of your handwriting. It's more like a muscle memory, something that you just do automatically. But you can tell a lot by looking at somebody's signature.
And how your handwriting compares to your father's and your mother's.
It's a lot more chaotic and harder to read. In fact, it's so hard to read that the family makes jokes about it. My daughter says I used to send her to the store with a list of things to buy, and she would, what is this? Carrots, milk, and what?
فيليب لوجان الناقد الفرنسي المتخصص في فن اليوميات يتحدث أن كل شيء أصبح يوميات من السيلفي، صور السيلفي وغيرها. وأنت لك حضور مهم في الانستغرام، فبقطع النظر عن من يدير حسابك، وأعتقد أنك من يدير هذا الحساب، هل تعتبرين تلك الصور شكلا من أشكال التوثيق اليومي، أو على الأقل الحالات التي يمر بها الكاتب؟
Philippe Lejeune, the French theorist of diaries, has said that almost everything today is a form of diary, and your Instagram account hosts numerous photos of yours. So, regardless of who is the actual manager of that account, do you see in these posts a sort of visual diary, a specific type of continuous narrative telling the story of Margaret Atwood's daily life?
Well, yes, I am the manager of that account. I would not let anybody else pretend to be me. In fact, when we first went onto Twitter, there were three fake Margaret Atwoods
Yeah.
already there. And this was a long time ago, and they were posting things I would never post. They weren't bad or unpleasant things, but they were very romantic things. So we had to expel them. Oh dear. Instagram. Um, I wouldn't say that's a record of my daily life. So I put up things that are unusual rather than things that are usual. So I don't usually dress up like a vampire,
Yeah.
just for instance. That's not my daily life. That's my non-daily life.
Yeah. أنتي دايري. تحدثت أنايس نين، واحدة من أهم كتاب اليوميات، عن أن اليوميات تمثل أو تشكل تسخين للعضلات السردية للكاتب الروايات، حتى ينقض على الفكرة، فكرة الرواية عندما تطل برأسها. هل تعتقدين في هذا أن الكتابة اليومية مهمة لاقتناص الرواية والكتابة الروائية؟
Anais Nin has written about the valuable role played by diaries in warming up a writer's narrative muscles. So, does this framing resonate with your own experience as a novelist? Like, do you write diaries in order to warm up for a potential novel?
I don't know why we write them. Um, when you write something down, there's always an implied reader.
مم.
So it's either somebody that may come across them, even the ones that are written in code, such as Samuel Pepys. If he wanted nobody else to read it, he would have burnt it. But who is it that he wanted to read it? We don't know. So I think a lot of the kind of thing I do is the only possible reader is me at a future date. So the future me might read these, as in fact I just did, looking for something for you. Um, but why do we do that? I'm not sure. I think some people do it for self-expression, especially if they are teenage people. Um, I don't know. It's a mystery. Well, there must be lots of theories about that, but I don't have any of them.
أوكي. نحن مصرين على انتزاع شيئا في علاقتك باليوميات. هل هناك أعمال في أدب اليوميات ماضية أو معاصرة أثرت في تكوينك أو لفتت انتباهك؟
We're trying to extract something about you and journals and diaries.
I
So,
know. Well, you've extracted quite a bit. You
So
know more than anybody else does.
the question is about whether you were particularly impressed or influenced by any contemporary diaries or works in that genre from a distant past or from a recent past, especially in the early stages of your career.
No, but then I came across some years ago this book called The Assassin's Cloak, which
Yeah.
I think is very interesting. So it takes diaries from many different eras and arranges them according to days of the year. Um, so
Uh,
I think that's pretty, there it is. Yes, right there. Um, your other question, I think, is a novelistic one. So I wasn't influenced by anybody's diary in particular, but the diary form is very useful sometimes for novels.
yes, yes,
So you can, for instance, The Handmaid's Tale,
yes.
uh, you might think of as one great big long journal entry. She's not writing it down, she's recording it, but that's what it is. And again, like anything that preserves your voice, there's an implied reader.
Yeah,
And in that respect, let's go to 1984 by George Orwell,
yeah.
in which, of course, a diary plays a crucial part.
Mhm,
He comes across um, an old stationery store that has somehow still survived, and he's captivated by a journal, the physical journal, and he buys it.
mhm,
Fatal. And then to go with it, he buys a pen and some ink. And of course, then he has to begin writing in it. So, in a way, the existence of the pen, the ink, and the paper, they're very tempting for writers. And he starts this journal, which of course then gets used against him when the opposition discovers it. And this is also true of real life. So people in very repressive societies, we know that they have written things down and hidden them. We know that they have smuggled them out at some risk to themselves. So Zemyatin's novel We was smuggled out of the Soviet bloc in that way. And there are a lot of other examples of um, almost like letters. Let us call them letters to the future or letters to the outside, like that. And the Testaments, which is the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, begins with the Aunt Lydia character writing a secret journal.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
They're still finding some of these things that have come to light. And of course, the Epic of Gilgamesh wasn't discovered until the 19th century. So it had lain unread, unknown for all of those years. And then suddenly, well, the Dead Sea Scrolls would be another example. These things come to light. And to go along with this, we can say that people have faked such documents
mhm,
quite a lot. So fake letters and fake. Somebody made a lot of money out of Hitler's diary. I don't know whether you looked that up. This guy faked it, and it was quite an obvious fake, but the British newspapers were so excited by this that they paid him a lot of money and published it, only to discover it was quite bogus. And if you read a lot of murder mysteries, as I do, those of the 30s and 40s in particular have often involved, or sometimes have involved, fake manuscripts.
yeah,
I'm reading a novel by Ian McEwan right now. It's called What We Can Know, and it turns on a disappeared manuscript and the rediscovery of the true story about it, which is in the form of a letter to the future, which has been hidden. So old device, parallels in real life, but new again, always useful. If you need the truth of something, like who did it. Let's see, thinking of another example, Agatha Christie's murder mystery called And Then There Were None. So it's like a closed room murder, except that it's an island. These people get invited to the island, communication is cut off, and one by one they get murdered until at the end, when people arrive with more food supplies, they find nobody living alive on the island. So who killed the last person? We discover through a letter that the murderer has written for people to read once he's dead, because he finishes himself off at the end. Yeah, so again, the manuscript, what I did, my journal of how I murdered all these people and why, is in the form of a letter left for us. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Yes. Very nice. في إجابتك عن هذا السؤال أشرت إلى دايري نوفل ورواية اليوميات، وهذا في الحقيقة موضوع الدورة الثانية من ملتقى تورونتو الدولي لفن اليوميات.
You've mentioned the diary novel,
Yeah.
and this will be the theme of the next round of the Toronto International Forum for the Art of Diaries.
Yeah, yeah.
It will be the diary as a novelistic form.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And this
yes, it's easier to write than the epistolatory novel, which consists of letters to and fro different characters. But it's always a problem for a novelist, because here's somebody writing a letter to somebody else who presumably knows what they're talking about, but the reader doesn't. So either you have to have a third letter writer describing the situation to a fourth person, or you have to have somebody in the letter repeating something the other person already knows.
no.
Yes, it poses a lot of credibility problems like that, although it was very popular in the 18th century as a novel form.
في إجابتك عن سؤال السابق تحدثت أشرت إلى هذه الأنطولوجيا التي بعنوان عباءة القاتل، يوميات لأنطولوجيا غربية. هذه العبارة، هذا العنوان في الحقيقة مقتبس من عبارة لويليام سوتار. العبارة الكاملة تقول: اليوميات هي عباءة القاتل التي نرتديها عندما نطعن رفيقنا في الظهر بالقلم. هل تؤمنين بأن اليوميات يمكن أن تشكل طعنة للأقارب والأصدقاء؟
You've earlier referenced the anthology, The Assassin's Cloak, and it's a reference to William Soutar's contention that diaries can be an assassin's cloak. He says
Without a doubt.
a diary is an assassin's cloak which we wear when we stab a comrade in the back with a pen. So do you believe that diaries can stab family, relatives, friends?
Absolutely. So in that case, the diary would be a sort of release for one's true emotions, which are socially inappropriate to express publicly, or sometimes financially inappropriate. If you wish to inherit from the rich old relative, you have to be polite to them, whereas you may dislike them quite a lot. So like that, yes. The question is, why do people leave such documents lying around for other people to find? once they are dead. And I think it's exactly the same idea as the time bomb. You know, you plant it, but it doesn't explode till later.
هناك كتاب يحرصون على إتلاف مسوداتهم حتى لا تسقط في يد النقاد أو الباحثين حولهم، حتى في سلات المهملات، مثل ما حدث مع الأعمال التي قام بها جاك داريدا مثلا. هل تحرصين على أن تتلفي ما تريدين إتلافه بشكل دقيق؟
Some writers would destroy their diaries to make sure no one would read them particularly.
Exactly.
So did you do that yourself?
Not yet. So unfortunately, my mother and her sister destroyed all their diaries before they got married. I wish they hadn't, because we would like to read those now. But Graham asked that his earlier diaries be destroyed, and I did that. So I think it's up to the person whether they want this, whatever it is, to survive. But note to all those readers out there, or listeners, if you don't want people to know this stuff, put it through the shredder, because otherwise someone will find it.
طيب، أنت كتبت المذكرات ويهمك جدا كتابة المذكرات، ربما أكثر من اليوميات. هل ترين أن كتابة المذكرات تعفيك من كتابة السيرة الذاتية؟
Do you feel that writing your memoirs spares you the need to write a full-fledged autobiography?
Oh, yes. I have no interest in writing a full-fledged autobiography. And anyway, why would I ruin the lives of a bunch of future graduate students? Can do that.
آه، يعني أنت من الكتاب القلائل الذين صدرت حول تجاربهم سير غيرية، سير كاملة، سير ذاتية غيرية صدرت عنك. عدد من السير الذاتية نذكر منها هذه، نشير إلى هذه الأعمال. هل واحدة لروزي ماري سوليفان وأخرى لناتالي كوك؟ هل تعاونت مع هاتين الكاتبتين، وهل شعرت أن هذه السير لم تكن كافية مما دفعك إلى كتابة مذكراتك الشخصية؟
You're one of the few writers who saw biographies, many biographies on themselves during their lifetimes. Rosemary Sullivan has published the Red Shoes about yourself. Natalie Cook wrote Margaret Atwood, a biography, to name only these. Have you collaborated in any way with these authors? Have you felt that these biographies may have left something out or are lacking something?
Well, they got some things wrong. No, I didn't collaborate as such. I did say to one of them who had told a really bizarre story that wasn't true at all, involving a clam. I was supposed to have had a pet clam in a bottle on my desk as a pet. Well, a clam would not live very long in a bottle on your desk unless it had an aquarium and the water was aerated. So I said, I did not have a pet clam. I'm not sure. When asked why I had a pet clam, I was supposed to have said, they're very silent. So this was not me. It was my sister-in-law who had a pet hermit crab, lived in a shell. You know, that's what hermit crabs do. They empty shells and they back into them and they have a little house. So she had one, and when asked why she had a pet hermit crab, she said they're very silent. And unfortunately, this aquarium was on top of an old-fashioned television set, and the hermit crab boiled to death. But this was not about me. It was a story I sometimes told about her.
مم.
And you will find that people get these stories all mixed up. It's more or less like Lives of the Saints, in which this saint story gets some details from that saint story over there, and then another saint who has never actually existed inherits both of their stories. Um, and that kind of thing happens quite a lot in the world of literary gossip.
مم.
I think my favorite story about myself was that I used to dress up in the court costumes of 18th century France,
مم.
including the wig, the white hair thing. And I used to walk around at night in Toronto in this outfit. Now, where that came from, I have no idea. It's not true, but having told you, I can just see the story getting into circulation as guess what Margaret Atwood used to do? Just yeah.
يقول بعض نقاد السيرة الذاتية أنها تنبع من رغبة الكاتب في الخلود. في هذا السياق، هل ترين أن مشاركتك في مشروع الفيوتشر لايبرري النرويجي بإيداع كتاب لن ينشر إلا في سنة 2114 تمثل بحثا في الاستمرارية وشكلا إبداعيا للحياة بعد زمنك؟
So, some critics believe that writing an autobiography is born out of the writer's desire for immortality, and you have contributed to the Norwegian project, the Future Library, Library of the Future, and you have submitted to them a manuscript to be only published in the year 2114. Does your contribution speak to a sort of continuity with the future, a form of creative writing or life after your own time?
No, I don't think it's about that for me. I think it's about hope for the future because uh, it supposes that there will be human beings in 2014, that there will be an Oslo, that there will be a Norway, that the trees planted to make the paper for the anthology of the future library will grow, that people will still be able to read, and that people will still be interested in reading. That's quite a lot of hope. And I think that's why this project got a lot of attention because we live in a time in which we're not feeling absolutely certain about the future 100 years from now. So, for instance, will all the ice melt? Will Oslo be underwater? Will there be people? Will we have boiled the planet to death like the hermit crab? And to do a project like this at least offers the possibility that that people will still be there. Don't you think that's hopeful? Yes.
آه، نصل تقريبا إلى نهاية هذا الحوار معك، الحوار الشيق. هل يمكن أن تحدثينا بكرمك عن كتابك الجديد، المذكرات بوك اوف ليفز؟ ما هو رهانات هذا الكتاب؟ كم من الوقت استغرق إنجازه؟ وأي فترة في حياتك يغطيها؟
You've been very gracious with your time, and we're almost at the end of this conversation. We were wondering if you could share any insights about your upcoming book, the Book of Lives. What is at stake in that project? For how much time have you worked on it? And which stages of your life does it cover?
Okay, it covers all of my life, including some of it before I got born, because you always have to say something about your parents and grandparents. And especially if you are from the east of Canada, they really go into that quite a lot. So my families are from Nova Scotia. And in Nova Scotia, when you meet somebody, you don't say, "What do you do?" You say, Who's your mother? Who's your father? Who's your grandfather? Who's your grandmother? What about the other side? And you go on like that until you discover that you're related to the other person, or else you aren't. Then you can talk about other things. So I start before I'm born, and it's a memoir, not an autobiography or a biography. And a memoir is what you can remember. So, what you can remember are things that stand out. Um, so, I took a walk today. Usually, it's very nice at the time, but you don't remember it unless a dog bites you. Then you remember it. So, it's catastrophes, stupid things you did, um, bad things other people did to you. You always remember those. And episodes like that. So it does concentrate somewhat on where I was and what I was doing when I was writing this book or that book or this other book. Um, but it is catastrophes, stupid things I did, and bad things that other people did to me, and things that were just funny. You often remember things that were just funny. So remember things that were funny or terrible, but you don't usually remember what you had for breakfast every day. For that, you have to go to your diary if you've recorded it.
نعم. هناك سؤال في الحقيقة يهم خاصة المجتمع الثقافي أو الكتاب العرب، وأغتنم هذه الفرصة معك ككاتبة محترفة عالمية لسؤالك هذا السؤال عن دور المحرر الأدبي. ما هو دور المحرر الأدبي في إنتاج أعمال مارغريت أتوود من خلال حتى هذا الكتاب الأخير؟
Uh, Kamel wants to seize on this opportunity to ask you something that is of great importance, especially for the Arab writers community. And what would be the role of the copy editor or the editor in your projects? How vital or not that is?
Well, I think it's complex because I have three publishers in English in three different countries. That would be Britain, the United States, and Canada. And when you're writing a novel, this doesn't usually come up. But with this book, because I'm from Canada and a lot of the action takes place in Canada, this is a place that is quite frequently not very well known in the United States or in England. So the editors there were saying, "What's all this? You know, what are you talking about here?" The Canadian one was saying, "Oh, put more in about this." So there is a back and forth about what should go in and how clear it should be made. And with a novel from another country, I'm not against footnotes. I think they're often very useful. They're probably more useful if you put them at the back. But I think it helps readers understand the context and what is at stake. You know, why this was important within the novel, in the world of the novel. So yeah, working with editors, luckily I get on with all of them. But sometimes they make pretty outrageous suggestions. And then you just have to say no because it's your name on the book.
شكرا. إذا عندك سؤال آخر. شكرا كثيرا. ثانك يو مارغريت على هذه الفرصة في إعطائنا هذا الحوار الحصري لنا، وشكرا لدعمك لملتقى تورونتو الدولي لفن اليوميات، الملتقى الأول في العالم لهذا الفن الذي يحاول أن يطور أو يهتم بهذا الفن في العالم والعالم العربي. شكرا على كل هذا.
Thank you, Ms. Atwood, for your time, for your generosity, for this conversation and for your support for the Toronto International Forum for the Arts of Diaries, the first one of the kind in Canada. And we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question for you. So in Arabic, the TH sound, the th sound, that exists. So I'm very interested in it because in European languages, it's mostly disappeared except for English and Icelandic. That's why French people have trouble saying they, those, that, etc. They don't have that sound anymore. So it's interesting to hear it in a language that isn't connected to Old Germanic, Old Norse, Anglo-Saxon, and Icelandic.
Yes, in Arabic it still exists, but it's
Yes.
away from colloquial. Absolutely.
So does it come at the beginnings of words or in the middles of words?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay. So in Old Anglo-Saxon and in Icelandic, they have two different alphabet letters that have disappeared from modern English, and each one of them denotes a TH sound, but one of them for the beginning of a word and one of them for a TH in the middle. They're called the eth and the thorn.
In Arabic, the th sound is
Yeah, the th sound. Yeah. So there's just one th sound and it comes everywhere.
so bull is thawr, garlic is thawm, where is hayth.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it would be easier for an English speaker to learn Arabic than it would for a French speaker.
Well,
Is that
Arabic
right?
it just takes love.
And time, the two big subjects of the novel. Okay, lovely to talk to you and good luck with everything. And do you want me to social media this conversation when it's being broadcast? Then you have to send a link.
Yes,
You have to send an internet link that you push on. Okay?
Kamel
Yes.
to have this on social media, and he is going to edit it and send it to
Yes. Yes. Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.